Hi, welcome back to the Reconstruction Podcast. Shout out to the YouTube and Spotify audience. Today I wanted to talk about one of the most powerful words in the English language, in my opinion. Trying not to be hyperbolic, but I think it is one of the most powerful words in the English language. And it's why. Simple, but straightforward. Why? When I talk about asking ourselves good questions, why is one of the greatest tools that we have in our tool belt. I think that it's really interesting that as children, when we're first learning to speak and we're learning how the world works and discovering things, we often ask why. And then our parents answer, and then we follow it up with why. And that cycle continues until our parents get annoyed and answer with either because I said so or because that's just how it is. And I think oftentimes we step into that role of the annoyed parent with ourselves. When we ask, why is this happening, or why, that's just how it is, or this is how it's always been. And it completely destroys our ability to grow or understand anything any further, because that's the end of it. I think that it is so important to get past that initial awkwardness of why when we ask ourselves that question, and the answer typically is I'm not sure, and really sit with it and go a little bit deeper into understanding the why behind our actions and our thoughts, etc. Me asking myself why has taken me on such a journey, and I have seen so much immense growth for myself in understanding why I do the things I do, why I'm making the decisions that I'm making, all of the above. I think it's important to understand the root of how we operate as a person. I am the type of person who really enjoys understanding how things work and why things work. So I live on YouTube and I'm watching videos about city planning and why the roads are lined the way they are, why there's X amount of cul-de-sacs in this specific city. And it brings me comfort understanding that there's a reason behind this infrastructure that's there. Why would I not be encouraged to do that for myself? If I'm making decisions that seem like they're out of character, or my life is not heading in the direction that I feel like it should be, why would I not take the time to pause and ask why? A lot of times the reason, at least for me, was because I knew the answer and I didn't want to deal with it because I was afraid of what was on the other side of that. And to ask yourself the question why, and to really follow through with it, it is a commitment. It's not for the faint of heart whatsoever. It's not a surface level thing. It seems like such a simple question, but it's really not. If we begin to understand and identify roots and we see some problems there, then it's like, okay, this is something that probably needs to be addressed. And I think that that is one of the other points that I want to communicate today too, is it's important to go beyond the why. It is really easy and popular right now to really deconstruct our beliefs, our views of the world, our views of ourselves, all these different things. I feel like I'll be talking to people all the time and I'm like, oh, like, what are you up to? Like, I'm just, deconstructing this specific political system and this, and that's cool. And I think that that's important. I think deconstruction is a very important aspect of life. And it's definitely a buzzword right now and a buzz thing. And maybe people have been doing it forever and now we just have a term for it. But the thing with deconstruction is there's a follow-up step. Reconstruction. Oh my gosh, he said the name of the podcast. We'll get into that in a second. You wouldn't move into a house that was just a foundation and the frame. There's nothing to keep you safe from outside. There's nothing to keep you warm. There's no furniture. You're laying on concrete and you have some wood beams around you. But oftentimes that's the way that we're living when all we're doing is deconstructing. I have done it. That's why I am bringing it up. I was just picking apart everything that I didn't like about myself and deconstructing, why am I doing this, and identifying that, and then just staying there. And I think that it became my identity. My shortcomings became my identity. And I think that that happens for a lot of people. They recognize these flaws in areas where there's holes, but they leave it at that. And so they're like, well, I am this, I am that. But it's not a full understanding of who that person really is. And it wasn't a full understanding of who I really was. I was only highlighting all the issues that I had wrong with me, but I wasn't addressing anything. I had all the roots in my hands, but I wasn't uprooting them, and I wasn't replacing them with the truth or with something better. And I think that that's where reconstruction comes in. That's the whole point of this entire podcast, is to walk you through my process of identifying issues and things that I see about myself and potentially, you may see in yourself, and then going through that journey, but then replacing the root with something different, with the truth, with growth, with seeds that, could take years to reap a harvest, but the seeds are there and that bad root is gone. I think that it is so important to not just stop halfway at deconstruction, but to really take the time with our why to reconstruct. If I see a flaw in my thought patterns toward myself, I'm not just going to be like, oh my God, you are a bad person because you think poorly of yourself. I want to know, why do I feel that way? Oh, the reason I feel that way is because when I was in elementary school, this one person said something to me that kind of hurt my feelings, and then I internalized it, and then I started believing it about myself. Cool. I understand that. But now, what is the truth in the situation? What am I replacing this root with, where this thing came in? That's what I want to get to with the why. I feel like it is so important for the why to lead into reconstruction. It is a more difficult process, and a lot of times reconstruction involves more than just us. And I think that that's why we tend to teeter off a little bit, because we don't like to ask for help. Pointing at myself first. It is okay to need help. You have people in your life who love and care about you and would do anything for you because they love and care about you. We can often identify things on our own, but there are times when we cannot identify things on our own and we need an outside perspective. And that may be people in your ecosystem, but that also may be professional help. And I think if you have an ability to have access to that, I would encourage you to access that. And then with that, identifying, okay, what is the truth in the situation? Who am I really? I thought I believed this, but this is what I actually believe. How do I make that stick? I think there's a lot of times we can do that whole process on our own with certain things, but there are things that are beyond just us. And that is why there are other people in the world. That is why we have people around us that care about us. That's why there are people whose profession is to help us identify things and have all these breakthroughs. I want to really encourage you to break off the stigma of asking for help. You're not weak because you need help. I would argue that you are stronger because you recognize that you need help and you actually ask for it. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. And it should be held in higher esteem than it is even currently. I think that as a society, we have gotten so much better in the last few years, but I still think we have some work to do. And I need help. Everyone needs help. And if we don't ask for help, we get stuck in the same place. My goal in this conversation or anything that I bring up is not to get you into a quarter life crisis or a midlife crisis, just pointing out, having this existential crisis where I don't know anything about anything. That's not the point of any of this. Asking why, identifying, and then figuring out what it is that you want to believe moving forward about yourself, or what is the truth moving forward, whether on your own or with other people. That is the point. That is what sitting with yourself, getting in touch with yourself looks like. Is this something that I actually believe, or is this something that was passed down from a parent or relative? I think that it's important to tackle our belief system when it comes to the way that we believe, when it comes to what we believe about ourselves and what we believe about the world. Because what we believe about ourselves is going to inform what we believe about the world around us and how we treat people around us. If I am consistently feeling like the most terrible person and I'm cynical towards myself, that is going to start to bleed into my relationships, and that's going to start to bleed into my worldview. Every aspect of reconstruction, it starts with us. We are what we can control. Self-control. We can't control the world around us, but we can control the way that we perceive the world around us. We can control the way that we respond to the world around us. I really want to encourage you to take some time this week, and whatever it is that's been weighing on you, whatever it is that you're going through, whatever it is that you're feeling, just ask, why am I feeling this? Why do I believe this? Why am I having this pattern of thought? And sit there. If you're not 100% getting an answer in your mind right away, sit there. If it doesn't happen right away, reapproach it. Don't give up on yourself. There's that initial time where you're like, okay, well, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I think that if we sit there and use our brain power, which we have so much of, we can come to understand what the root of the why is for most things. Real life example. For me, growing up, I always felt misunderstood and rejected by people around me. I felt like I was the only one going through everything I was going through. No one else understood. I mean, part of that problem was probably because I didn't allow other people to understand, looking back, of course. But I had this belief that every person that I met, no matter what, was just going to misunderstand me. And so I brought that into every relationship that I had, every friendship that I had, that I was just going to be misunderstood and there was nothing I could do about it because that's the way that it's always been. And one day I had to ask the question of why? Why am I always feeling misunderstood? Why am I always feeling rejected? And I came to understand that it was because that was my expectation, and therefore my expectation was informing my behavior towards other people. I wasn't allowing anyone to understand me. I wasn't allowing anyone to know the real me. I would give them a arm's length understanding of who I was. No one got close enough, because if I allowed them close enough, then they could hurt me. But once I began to understand that, I found people who I trusted and had rapport with, and I allowed them in. And they didn't disappoint. They didn't misunderstand me. They understood who I was. They loved me for who I was. They didn't want me to be anyone else. I think that oftentimes this journey is full of a lot of self-inflicted wounds when we look back at it in hindsight. And that's why I think it is so important to take the time to ask, why? Am I completely understood by every single person that I come across? No. Do I still feel rejected at times? For sure. But I have enough people who understand me and accept me that those that do not don't weigh on me like before. I felt like it was just me against the world. And I know that we've all felt that way at some time or another. It's just us against the world. We're just trying to figure it out. We're just trying to survive. But why? Is there just a subtle tweak that we can make in order to thrive? Because I don't think that we were put here on earth just to merely survive and get by and allow life to happen to us. I think that we're supposed to thrive. And as I've asked myself that question of why, come to an understanding of the why, uprooted it if it needed to be uprooted, and replaced it with truth or seeds of truth, I have seen so much growth. It is not an overnight, easy process whatsoever. And I don't want you to hear what I'm not saying. I'm not saying to pick 1,000 different little things and start chipping away. What's being brought up right now? What's the thing that's weighing on you now? Tackle that. Take your time tackling that. Make sure that you have a full understanding of the why. Sometimes the reason why we do things is not the wrong reason. And that's okay. But understanding why we're doing things, I think, is important. I found it so frustrating. There's so many times when I would tell someone what was going on or how I was feeling about something, and they would ask me why, and I didn't have an answer because I hadn't even asked myself that. And that's all I really want to convey is start the process of asking yourself why. And as you're on this journey, I would also encourage you, for those people that you care about, that you're a part of their ecosystem, ask them what their why is. Asking that question can lead down the path of breakthrough for so many people and for ourselves. There has been many times when I'll be talking to Jonas about something that frustrates me or whatever, and he will ask me why. And then he'll ask me more good questions. And then I become irritated at Jonas because I don't have the answer. But then I go and I sit and I ask myself those questions. I unpack that with myself. And then I come to an understanding, and then I have a game plan on how I want to reconstruct. And that is something I appreciate about Jonas so much, is he asks me really good questions. And he helps me to ask myself really good questions, because sometimes he comes up with questions that I wouldn't even think to ask myself. And so I want to encourage you to find people who challenge you, and to challenge ourselves, and to be the person that challenges other people. Don't just be that. Be a human being. But also, when you feel like it, there's moments in every relationship. I know I'm not the only one who feels this way, and I'm not the only one who's had this experience, but there's moments when you just feel like there's a question you got to ask. And sometimes we just bow out and don't. And I think rising up to that occasion could be something that completely shifts the tide for someone and leads them towards their breakthrough. So I just want to encourage you just to be a little bit aware in conversation, and just be more aware with ourselves. And ask why. Why do I think the way that I think? Why am I perceiving myself the way that I perceive myself? Why do I feel this way towards this situation? Whatever it may be. I feel like as you're listening, there's thoughts that are popping into your mind. That's what you need to ask why about. So I want to encourage you to do so. If you did make it to the end of the video, I want to thank you oh so very much. You get, honestly, all the gold stars because I lost track of how many gold stars I was handing out at this point. I want to encourage you to like and subscribe if you have not. That would be very helpful for your boy. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments with what you're comfortable sharing of a time when you've asked yourself why, come to an understanding, and had that 180 experience. And also, if there's any other topics that you want me to try to tackle, I will try my best. I definitely do not know everything about everything, but if there's a topic I feel like I have a voice to speak in, I definitely will. So, again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time.